Atheist Nomads, episode 376, The Second Great Ballot Fraud.
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
Welcome to another episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Dustin, and joining me is Lauren.
Hello.
And yes, that title, I just
Nobody's
made
gonna
up.
get that.
It's a combination of the Dustin Off the Degrees title and the first news story that we'll be talking about.
So stick around to
Yep.
understand what the headline means. All right. Okay.
What the title means, yes.
Title, sorry.
Yeah.
How have you been?
Tired.
Me too.
Yeah.
Very fatiguing, but it's been good. Fall's good. All the colors are changing here in Boise, so that's nice. Need to get out and go for a walk in the park so you can see all the colors.
Yeah. And I since we last recorded, went through the process of oh wow, I am actually really balding dysmorphia.
Bum, bum, bum. Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting.
At least you got, well, I would say at least you got it done all within a week, but I guess you could say it was pretty harrowing.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good one. I like that.
That was.
Write that one down. That was good.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah. If you watch any of the live streams, I appear to have a full head of hair. If you looked at the back of my head, it would look very different.
You should wear a yarmulke. It's not that bad yet, but it's a sensitive issue. You got to tread lightly.
Yeah, except if you tread too lightly, then I don't know what's happening that I can't see in the mirror.
And this was all brought about because of an episode of Norsemen, where a great show, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly historically accurate, but hilarious nonetheless, about Vikings. And there's some hair jokes in there.
And, okay, the first hair joke, and you reach back and touch the back of my head, which I have known for several years was thinning, and then I reach back, and it's like, wait, there's barely anything there.
Yeah, apparently I set something off there, so that's been fun to deal with. I've mostly just been cleaning rocks, because I got a whole bunch of nice rocks from a neighbor who moved out, so now Dustin's actually considering building me a setup, which is nice. Someday I can actually cut rocks myself.
Yeah.
Who knows?
All right. Well, let's jump into Dustin Off the Degree. In preparation for next week's, which is an episode that I really need to get out on time for it to be perfect, which we'll be doing a Dustin Off the Degree on The Great Disappointment. We need background for The Great Disappointment, which is the Second Great Awakening.
Okay.
And why is it just the Second Great Awakening, not the First Great Awakening is the logical point to start, other than the fact that I just figured this out yesterday? Yeah. It's that the First Great Awakening is minor compared to the insanity that is the second.
So what was the first one?
It was colonial America, people being upset with basically nobody being religious. And so there was an attempt to get people back into churches and actually take it seriously. Like, the Puritans had stopped being Puritans by that point. They were well on their way to being Unitarians.
Damn secularists.
And, well, Unitarians and Congregationalists. And the Episcopal Church of England was getting pretty poor attendance and pretty weak. Deism was on the rise, and there was this resurgence in religious fervity.
Okay.
Fervity? That's not the right word.
Fervity?
Fervor. Religious fervor.
Fervor. That's a stupid word. Fervor.
Yeah.
Fervor. Sounds like an animal.
And
that has a lot of hair.
So that happened, and then, this little thing called the American Revolution happened after that, and I'm
honestly surprised they even still had the Episcopal Church after that.
What's hilarious is in the entire rest of the world, the Church of England is usually called the Church of England,
right,
or Church of whatever country it's in. Except here, where they went Episcopal Church.
To separate themselves from the Church of England?
Yep.
Oh, okay, so they did do that, basically.
They did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hip hip.
And at the time of the Revolution, in places like Virginia, by nature of being a resident and citizen of the state of Virginia, you were a member of the Episcopal Church.
Oh, one of those.
Period.
Okay.
Well, actually, it was in the colony, not in the state.
Okay.
Because one of Thomas Jefferson's big things was getting separation of church and state in Virginia, because even though he was a deist and by no means a Christian, he had to get ordained a minister to become a judge.
Yeah. It complicates things, and that shouldn't be allowed. And we full-heartedly agree with that.
So, after the First Great Awakening, the Enlightenment hit the U.S.,
like a bullet. Just bam!
It brought about the revolution. It is why most of the signers of the Declaration were deists, not Christians. It's a big reason why most of the people who wrote the Constitution were deists, not Christians. And it's why our earliest presidents were probably deists, not Christians. Especially the ones who
fathers. Yeah.
Especially the Adamses.
Yeah.
Well known to be Unitarians.
Whoop whoop. Represent.
And you had the Unitarian movement starting to split apart the Congregational Church that had been, the Puritans and Separatists of Massachusetts and Plymouth and the like.
Mm-hmm.
And
all of that was included in the Great Awakening?
All of this is in the period between the Great Awakenings.
Okay. Oh, so that happened after the Great Awakening.
After the First Great Awakening, before the Second Great Awakening.
Okay, so let's go ahead and skip forward to the...
Yes. So you've got this era of secular rational thought, and some Scottish immigrants who had settled in the Appalachians were rather shocked by what they saw when they got to America. And they decided that America needed a religious revival.
Okay.
And so I
can see that.
Kentucky and Tennessee, they started doing these big tent revivals that they called camp meetings.
Oh, is this the birth of camp revivals?
This is the birth of big tent revivals and camp meetings, which are the same thing.
Sorry, I didn't mean camp revivals.
Yeah, this is the start of it.
Okay.
And
boo.
You had these Presbyterians who were, in particular, the anti-Calvinist Presbyterians, since most Presbyterians were Calvinist, but there's the anti-Calvinist branch of Presbyterianism. Calvinists believe that God chooses if you are saved or not, so there's no point in doing any evangelism. Whereas free will believers believe that you need to work to save people's souls so that they will choose to accept God's gift of salvation.
Right. Because you can't accept a gift if they don't know it's out there.
Right. Or if you don't kick them in the ass to remind them.
I do like God has already chosen who's going to go to heaven and hell. So he created all these people, make sure that all these people are born that are going to go to hell.
Yep.
That doesn't...
Almost everyone.
Did nobody think that through? That maybe doesn't make a whole lot of sense?
Martin Luther thought it was a good idea because the Jews were all going to burn in hell. And he was
had
quite
to find
the anti-Semite.
some way to get the Jews to burn.
Yeah.
So obviously God isn't right 100% of the time because he's his chosen people.
Who turned their back on God and crucified his son.
Oh my God, the government did.
Yeah. Anyway, that's not the point here, though. So you have the free will.
Sorry, there's a lot of rabbit trails on this one. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Some free will Presbyterians, and then the Methodists at that time in that area, rather than having parish pastors, they had circuit riders. These were pastors who would travel continuously preaching at different Methodist churches. And
so every week was a different pastor?
No. You would see a pastor at your church once or twice a year.
And the rest of the time it was just a congregation.
It'd be an elder.
Okay.
Reading from one of John Wesley's things.
Okay.
Probably. And then, but so the Methodist circuit riders, they jumped on it because it was perfect for them. They travel town to town, set up a tent, hold a camp meeting. People can come in from the edges, more of the edges of the frontier into the town where they have the tent set up outside of, and they can do these big revivals. And then some Baptists started to get into it. Now, Baptists also have the same issue as Presbyterians. Traditionally, Baptists had been Calvinist. Calvinists don't really do evangelism.
Right.
You had the Free Will Baptists who rejected Calvinism and got in on camp meetings and big tent revivals.
Okay, so lots of splintering and fanaticism?
The Methodists and Presbyterians worked together.
Okay.
And the Baptist pastors who had their congregations there at home with them started to they would set up their tents outside of their town and try and get people into the tent for a big
like Burning
revival.
Man, but for religion instead of sex and drugs?
Kinda, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Burning Man, I guess, would be kind of a secular camp meeting.
New Age.
So then these revivals started spreading into surrounding areas, into the Ohio Valley and into Virginia and North Carolina. Slaves started going to some of these revivals and starting their own slave churches. The African Methodist Episcopal Church, that's where that comes from.
I've never heard that, but okay.
It is the largest traditionally black church.
Okay.
The shooting in Charleston, South Carolina, years back.
Okay.
That was an African Methodist Episcopal Church.
Okay.
And that was started from these revivals.
Potato Girl. Yeah. We don't get exposed to that here.
Methodist circuit riders went to plantations and they set up their tents outside of plantations and converted a bunch of slaves who started setting up Methodist churches and then eventually decided they wanted their own Black Methodist church. So that's why they created that separate denomination.
Or were forced to because they were allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this spread. It spread into the Ohio Valley and gained in popularity there. Started to spread up into New York. And one of the big changes that was happening by this time was women were outnumbering men at these revival meetings 2-1.
Yeah.
And the preachers started shifting the message to try to appeal to the audience that they had.
Okay.
And they shifted it from God being the ruler who commands kings what to do to God is your personal friend. And they talked less about judgment and more about forgiveness.
Mommy's little helper.
Yep.
Okay.
The
fatherly love instead of
fatherly wrath.
Yeah, okay.
That all comes from the Second Great Awakening, from these camp meetings. Women were showing up, so they feminized the Jesus message.
Okay.
And
when was this? Sorry, what was the time period?
By this point, we're into the 18 teens and 20s.
Okay, so that gives you an idea of exactly how long that particular version of God has been around.
Yeah, literally 200 years.
Out of...
Yeah.
Yeah.
The modern Jesus is my best friend, Jesus take the wheel type of Jesus is just a couple decades. That's more of a creation of the 70s and 80s.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. So then, as this was spreading, there was more fracturing and splintering and new churches being formed. And a place where there seemed to be a lot more of this fracturing and splintering happening was in upstate New York, what is referred to as the Burned Over District.
Okay.
It's called the Burned Over District because of how many revival preachers went through there and how many camp meetings they had there, and that it was basically burned over with fire and brimstone. Even though if you look at the actual estimates of how many converts in attendance and per capita, how many camp meetings there were no more in New York than anywhere else. But New York is where...
New York just thought it was a little over the top.
Closer to the Congregationalists and Unitarians. So yeah, they probably thought, yeah, that's really over the top. This is where you get the Restorationist movement trying to revert to a primitive form of Christianity, undo all the damage of a millennia and a half of papal dominancy of all of Christianity and try to fix that.
I wonder what that looked like.
Well, one of the earliest and most prominent of the Restorationists was Joseph Smith. Who found these ancient tablets and was able to translate them. And since there was this little bit of a Restorationist flavor to the revivals in upstate New York, there were people primed for his message.
Okay. I don't see his results being any kind of restorative, though. Like, it doesn't seem like he was going back to a basic Christianity with any of that. Did the details came later?
He claimed he was.
Okay.
No, nobody.
I found golden tablets. Let's just bring it all back to the tablets.
Yep.
And then it was like, oh, and there's all this other stuff.
Every attempt to try to restore Christianity back to its early days,
whatever that means,
just create something new and different.
Yeah.
It's not anything closer to the old days because
the old days don't work.
Because the old days of the church was people running from persecution and having secret meetings in the catacombs. We don't have catacombs here, and we don't have persecution here.
We should. Not persecution, catacombs. Jeez, sorry. I was too late on that one. We have plenty of persecution.
There were a lot of different churches that formed up as a result of the Second Great Awakening. But one of the other groups that started to form up during in the burned over district was the Millerites, when William Miller and some Free Will Baptist and Methodist ministers started holding their own camp meetings with their own special message that we will talk about next week.
Okay. Is that another term for Beer 30? Millerite now? That was weak.
William Miller got his start several decades prior to the founding of the Miller Brewing Company.
Okay.
If I were to sum up the Second Great Awakening in 2 words, it'd be camp meeting.
Okay.
And several of the groups who were involved in or formed from the Second Great Awakening continue to have camp meetings. Among
even to
them,
this day?
Even to this day, Seventh Adventist Church holds camp meetings all over. It's a great opportunity for people to come together and meet other believers from across their state. And
sounds like youth camp.
There's always a youth tent, and It's not the youth camp. They have their own youth camps as well. But the adults get to do it too. Basically, it's camp for adults.
Okay.
And the Oregon Conference camp meeting is held at Gladstone, which is a suburb of Portland, where they have a massive, massive compound with lots of parking and tent spaces, both for camping tents and the big tents to hold the meetings, because most of the meetings are held in tents because it's camp meeting.
Yeah.
These giant tents they erect. And during the fires...
So is this just giant parking lots?
Lawns.
Okay.
That don't require irrigation because it's a suburb of Portland.
Right.
Interestingly, they opened all of that up last month with the fires.
Yeah. Yeah, that was...
If anybody needed a place to camp who was evacuating, they had that available for evacuees.
Yeah, that's a good use of that space, considering it sits empty most of the time.
Yep.
It's fucking stupid.
They moved the conference headquarters there from I think it was $2.5 million property they had in Portland proper. They moved it to the camp meeting grounds. Which if they were to sell that, it's only a couple miles from the Clackamas Town Center Mall. Like, it's a populated area. The development that could be done, that's got to be worth tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Oh, well.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll get to the Adventist here next. And now the news.
Speaking of news, or not speaking of news, we've been watching Lower Decks on CBS. It's a Star Trek that would have the creator rolling in his grave. Oh my God, it's so good. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it.
Oh yeah, pretty amazing.
Because if you guys have been following the show, you know that we love Star Trek. So.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Well, and we also not too long ago watched The Good Place.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty awesome show with the whole
Tony Danza and Kristen Bell. But the whole concept of heaven and hell and what. Oh man. It's great.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. And especially the last season when they wrap it up, it's like, yes, they get it.
Yeah.
So if you ever had quandaries with heaven and hell, watch that show all the way through. It's great.
Oh, yeah. And they've now got all 4 seasons on Netflix.
Yeah.
If we want to talk about bad people doing bad things.
Oh, let's.
California.
Yep. Okay, so California on fire.
Yep.
So it's got a lot of problems going on right now. LA apparently like a third of their population is homeless or something ridiculous like that.
And a bunch of fires from homeless people's tents catching fire, which
I mentioned the fires.
Yeah.
I didn't specify wildfires.
Yeah.
So what's going on in California?
So the California Republican Party has been given cease and desist orders and ordered to remove unofficial ballot boxes that they've been putting up in at least 3 different counties. One of them was actually found at a Baptist church.
Yeah, so when people refer to a party stealing votes, this isn't what they're usually referring to. They're not usually referring to actually stealing ballots.
Yeah. Literally,
this is effed up.
Yeah, they've got printed off on a color printer,
well,
probably inkjet printer, with some American flaggy bits in the corners, and it says official ballot drop-off. Taped onto, literally just a sheet of paper, taped onto the front of a filing cabinet. And they were calling these official ballot drop-offs.
Anybody who dropped off their ballot in something that sketchy kind of deserves it, but that's very anti-American, so.
Yeah.
No, well, I don't know. Anti-American doesn't really mean anything anymore, but
right, because the American dream is
sacred. That's one of those things. And for a party, a major political party, to get caught doing something so base, so flagrantly evil, and messing up the election is just it's unforgivable.
Yeah,
every single one of the heads of the Republican Party who knew about this need to go to jail.
Yep.
For that's a federal offense.
They should be sitting in San Quentin for vote tampering.
Tampering with
it's election fraud.
Yeah.
Now they're claiming. Okay, first let's go with a quote from the California Secretary of State. Quote, "These unauthorized drop boxes are a disservice to the state and local election administrators who have spent months working on the placement and deployment of official ballot drop boxes."
Yeah. Choosing the ballot drop-off box location it's kind of a big deal, and it takes committees, and it takes polls and surveys, and this is just so bad.
Right, and then you have if somebody puts in some new ones, I could imagine people who are rushed trying to get the ballot dropped off and get home to their kids or get to work, and oh crap. Hey, there's one right there.
I saw one on my way to work. I'll just drop it off there on my way back. Yeah, it's really easy to get distracted. And an American flag on it, and people are like, okay.
Now, there is, under California law, there is nothing that allows for unauthorized vote-by-mail drop boxes. Only the county election officials have the authority to deploy those.
Yeah.
The parties don't.
Right. Because the parties will tamper.
What the California Republican Party, and also that Baptist church that had one, are claiming is, it's allowed for friends, family to drop off their ballot with someone they know and trust to drop it off for them.
I was going to say, they're probably claiming to collect the ballots and drop it off for the people who drop them off. But it's different if I were to drive Dustin's ballot to the drop-off.
Which you did.
Yeah, versus dropping it off at a box at some church.
Yeah.
That's not trusted. That's not close family, friend, or anything like that. The Baptist church should be shut down. You should lose taxism status. You should not exist anymore because you cannot do that.
Right. And like you look at
and if they were putting up the same boxes as the other parts,
they were.
You know that so now they're
working together.
And
right, because in the modern day and age, what is a Republican? A modern Republican is just an evangelical white supremacist. If you don't fit that, and you consider yourself a Republican, you are not represented by that party anymore. No,
the party has abandoned you, and it is going to be up to those people who have been abandoned to destroy the party as we know it and build up a new one to replace it. That's going to be I don't know, fiscally conservative.
Actually fiscally conservative?
Yep. The stuff that people harp on. So harp. A little biased there. But so many people should be in jail for this. Has anybody been arrested? Cease and desist letter?
Cease and desist.
Is pansy.
Yeah.
That is pathetic. Come on, electors.
It's one of those where if a political party is doing something wrong and not following the rules, let me rephrase that. Republicans keep breaking the rules, and if they get called out for it, they say you're being biased against them. If the Trump family had been kicked out of the debate for not wearing face masks, there would have been a claim that it was an anti-conservative bias.
Yep, not
This
that.
is the same thing.
Yeah.
They're trying to avoid that.
And I'm sorry, Republicans who are not insane. I really am, because I personally have friends who would be Republican if it wasn't for all this bullshit. I get it. We fall on different sides of debates on a lot of things, but this is weird. This is dystopian, and that segment of the Republican Party should be dismissed from the party as a whole. No more money, no more anything. Those people should be in jail. And the damage is, I don't know, that kind of damage is irreparable. You can't trust your vote.
Well, and when you look at it even closer, Trump has been sowing distrust of mail-in ballots.
I requested mail-in, and by the time I got the ballot, I've had mail returned to me that was clearly like fine. My trust in the post office is gone right now because Trump put somebody in charge who dismantled it, basically, because of voter suppression.
Yep.
They don't want people mailing in their ballots to the correct place to get counted. They want them to be lost in transit or delayed or damaged. If somehow the signature gets damaged in transit, then that doesn't count. Oh my God, there's a million ways that they can tamper with votes.
Right. And so you add to the distrust, even though
the post office is itself a very good thing.
Right. And until this year, there has never been any evidence of the post office screwing up anything with ballots.
Yeah, that's not.
Since Trump has been asking for it, there has been some, and that's probably people who support Trump.
Yeah.
Who happen to be postal
like his
workers.
crony that he put in charge who dismantled half of it.
And so you've got that happening, and then what does the California Republican Party do? Oh, people are going to want to use drop boxes.
Yeah.
Let's set up our own so we can throw away those ballots.
See, now other states just said, okay, but we'll have one drop off per county, which is also like effed up.
Yeah.
One polling place, one drop off box per county in Texas. Are you kidding? Do you know how big those counties are?
They keep losing in court on that one.
Yeah, they should, because it's stupid.
Well, we've got 2 drop-off locations in our county.
The longer they fight it in court, the longer those votes get delayed and getting counted. So this election is Trump's right. This election is basically just nothing. Nothing is right about it, but it's not in his favor.
Right. All the issues are because he's trying to get stuff fucked up so he can call foul.
And I think it's up to writing into the elections office, the elector's office, and saying, you guys got to fix this. You got to heavily fine and arrest people who have been shown to tamper.
This would be writing into the state attorney general.
State attorney general. Dear state attorney general, arrest these fuckers.
If you are in California,
your citizen,
yep,
so-and-so. Write
into the state attorney general and the state secretary of state.
Every state. Say, we want security. Say, this is, it's happening in other places. It could be happening here, and we're not finding it.
Voter suppression is.
And then you end up with ballots that mysteriously show up off the coast of Florida. Did you realize that that's a reference that is actually going to reach an audience now that is too young for it? I've reached that age where I can make jokes about something that happened so long ago that current young voters have no idea what I'm talking about. Oh, boy.
All right. So in Washington, D.C., the Capitol Hill Baptist Church, so another Baptist church, has been fighting for some time with the District of Columbia's COVID-19 restrictions, claiming that it is violating their constitutional rights and causing irreparable harm to the congregation.
Okay.
So the state standard that they're complaining against is no more than 100 people or 50% of the capacity.
Okay.
Whichever is fewer.
So how many people are in this congregation? Does it say?
About 1,000.
Okay. So
they can only get 100 at a time.
All right. So do what everybody else is doing and go online.
Yep.
Stream and leave the seats open for people who don't have that option and only have 100 of them at a time.
Yeah.
And wear masks.
This is a congregation that was established in 1878.
Oh, wow.
And they have had Sunday services every single week, except for 3 weeks during 1918, when they shut down for the Spanish flu.
Ha, that's funny. Because, yeah, well, obviously.
So what they started doing to get around the rules is meet outside.
Okay.
And so they've got an outdoor space in Alexandria, Virginia, which is not in Washington, D.C. So it's under Virginia rules, not D.C. rules.
So they can't complain to D.C. about that.
But since most of the members actually live in D.C., they're wanting permission from the courts to rule that D.C. has to let them do outdoor services with no attendee caps.
No.
And Judge Trevor McFadden of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia agreed with the church.
Boo.
Saying, given the district's restrictions, the church must now choose between violating the law or violating its religious convictions, citing the 1993 Religious Freedom Restoration Act.
Oh my God, that act is so stupid.
You want to guess who appointed him?
1993?
No, this judge.
No, I'm guessing. Oh, yeah. Trump?
Yep.
Yeah. So there you go.
The Religious Freedom Restoration Act was a liberal law to allow Native Americans to smoke peyote.
Well, if you make exception for one religion, I guess somebody else is going to abuse it too.
The whole point of it was for minority religions to be able to do things that seem wrong to white people.
Yeah.
And it has been completely twisted and distorted to the point where it just needs to go far, far away into the dustbin of history.
Yeah. Now we're getting white people who are being abused by white people saying, wear a mask. How dare you? Ugh, it's stupid. So yeah, so Boise, Idaho in general is what, number 1, number 2 in the United States for COVID outbreak?
Yeah, Idaho's in the top couple, kind of neck and neck with South Dakota for being worst right now.
Yeah, surprisingly not so much in the schools.
Yeah, it's not the schools.
Schools aren't so much of the problem. So that leaves the adults who are spreading COVID right now. And after so long, it is easy to start saying, well, I can start going back to stores. I can start going to restaurants. Nope. Sorry, guys.
Yep.
It's time to go back to we should be going back to full lockdown. The schools need to be shut down again. And people need to work from home again. We need to go back to what we were doing in March.
When there wasn't anywhere near as much COVID here.
It wasn't even in the wild here at that point. And people did a great job of shutting down. But they couldn't maintain it, and now here we are again. But, Trump's immune now, so everybody else can just get over it, I guess.
Our current incidence rate isn't as high as it was in July, but the new cases rate is higher than it was in July.
Not to mention people who are getting reinfected.
and there's that. So that is actually fits in with this next story we're going to talk about. A open letter is now getting circulated. It has been signed by more than 15,000 scientists and medical practitioners and more than 150,000 members of the general public. This is called the Great Barrington Declaration, and it is calling for the herd immunity plan.
Okay.
Which is don't wear masks, don't social distance, pretend that life is normal, let the virus hit quick and hard, and then everybody will be fine.
You mean the survivors?
Yeah. So they're calling for let the entire healthcare system be completely overwhelmed and society be ground to a halt by disease.
Yeah, you haven't seen nothing economically yet. We've been doing pretty well economically, even as shitty as it's been. But you get that many people sick at once?
Look at northern Italy back in March.
Yeah. They didn't have places to put the bodies. Do you guys remember that? I mean...
Yeah. In Spain...
That could happen here.
In Spain, they were having to use football arenas for makeshift morgues.
Yeah.
They had to call in the army to transport bodies. Like, there wasn't anything to do. Like, they couldn't handle it.
There weren't graves.
Yeah.
There weren't enough graves. They had to start chucking people in the fire, I guess.
So, in the list of 15,000 scientists and medical practitioners, they are counting
naturopaths,
homeopaths, naturopaths, chiropractors, acupuncturists, massage therapists, Reiki practitioners. They're all getting counted as medical practitioners. And there have also been some other names. There is Dr. I.P. Freely.
Oh my God. All right, Barrington, just throw it out.
Dr. Person fake name.
Oh, they're not even trying? Oh, these are probably people who just like signed online.
It was all online.
All online. They just, some 17-year-old decided to sign up.
Dr. Johnny Bananas.
Okay.
And a Dominic Cummings, who is described as a PhD, Durham University, misspelled. Both of those are intentionally misspelled. And then there's Dr. Harold Shipman, a general practitioner in the United Kingdom. Dr. Harold Shipman was a real person who killed more than 200 of his patients.
Okay. All right. So it's bogus.
A lot of bogus.
A lot of bogus, and a lot of people who aren't really medical experts. There's been some confusion because it's like, you guys are all for herd immunity. What changed your mind now? Well, that comes with learning more about the disease. Just like there's really no such thing as herd immunity for the common cold, which is a coronavirus.
Yeah, some of them are.
Some of them are. It doesn't work to get a certain amount of people immune when it kills off so many. Like, herd immunity for smallpox was devastating. So you develop vaccines. In this case, we don't have a vaccine. We're not going to have a vaccine for a while. Even if we do, it's not going to be very efficient. So there's no chance to reach that herd immunity that we get with, like, MMRs and, the typical yearly vaccines that we have. Those vaccines and that herd immunity is separate from what these guys are talking about. So if somebody says herd immunity is bullshit, just remind them that we're talking about different kinds of diseases here.
Yeah, because for one, at the absolute best, the average person will have access to a effective and approved vaccine. Let me phrase that. The average person in a rich country will have access to effective and safe vaccines sometime late next year at the earliest.
Yeah.
People in poor countries will probably be looking a couple more years out. If we want herd immunity with as contagious as this is, it needs to be global, that vaccination program. And
it needs to stay up to date.
We also know that our immune systems suck at developing immunity to coronaviruses. Some of the coronaviruses that are parts of the common cold, we can develop antibodies that we lose in 3 months. Some might last a year. It is possible for you to get infected with the same cold strain twice a year, every year, your entire life, with a really good immune response to that cold virus.
Yeah.
But then there's SARS from, almost 20 years ago, that there's documented immunity for that for at least 4 years. 4 years is still not a long time. And we don't know how well immunity is working with this. There are reports now of people getting reinfected. We even have somebody in Twin Falls, not far from Boise, who she got it in March when it was going through that area, and she's in the hospital with it now.
Yeah.
There's a woman in the Netherlands who just died from getting COVID a second time.
Yep. So that's fun.
Herd immunity might not ever happen.
Yeah.
And with the vaccines, it's encouraging. I'm optimistic, but we've never created a vaccine for a coronavirus before. So this is...
Considering how many trials I've had to stop, I'm not optimistic, but...
These pauses are normal. The normal part of any clinical trial.
Yeah. No, I know. They're trying to rush it, though.
Yeah. Operation Warp Speed. For a local story, and a follow-up to one we talked about a couple of weeks ago, the Caldwell School District has issued a no trespass order to Ammon Bundy.
Yeah. He's been... So did he try to shut down another game?
No, this is all from the initial one.
So that was a football game that was in Caldwell.
Yep. That
featured the Emmett
Huskies.
The Emmett Huskies versus the Caldwell Cougars. So Ammon has I think a nephew on the team, has a son on the team, something like that. So he wanted to go to the game. He wanted to go to the game and not wear a mask. They said no. He got kicked out for that. And now they are...
And he refused to leave.
And refused to leave. So there was a big kerfuffle. So now Caldwell School District is like, yeah, you're not welcome back.
On their any of their properties.
Yeah, any of them. So I wish Emmett would do the same, but I wish the state would do that. But good for them.
Their vote went beyond just a no trespass on him, but it also allows district officials to ban anybody else who's violating the district's health and safety protocols.
And that's the important part there. There was a part of me thinking late night, this is like after you go to bed and your thoughts are starting to go crazy as you sleep. Maybe he's actually like trying to get people to be better about the mask thing by being an asshole about it. Like maybe he's trying to sacrifice himself for the greater good.
No.
I know. It was a crazy thought.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, maybe the end result will end up with people wearing more masks. I'm like, oh, maybe that's his plan. We're going to find out. He's actually been documenting all the times that he's been pissing off people. And he's like, I tried this and they still didn't arrest me. I tried this and I was in jail for a night. I tried this. He's actually trying to prove that a white man can get away with anything.
Oh, yeah.
Because he has done virtually everything wrong and has gotten away with it because of being a white man with a gun. And his final note when he dies is going to say, I lived the injustice.
Well, either a white man with a gun or a white man surrounded by other white men with guns.
Yeah.
So before this was actually passed, KTVB, one of the local TV stations, talked to Bundy on the phone about it. And he said that he would ignore it if it was passed.
Okay. Yeah, because he doesn't care about going to jail or...
Then, in a text message, he said, and again, this was a text message, quote, I guess the next time I go to my children's games at Caldwell, I will find out. If I'm thrown out, maybe I'll come back with hundreds of people and they can try and throw all us out. Caldwell School District was wrong and should let it go. They actually should apologize to the players, coaches, and fans, including me. Not even the Southwest District Health has mandated masks. The Caldwell superintendent is a flaming liberal that hates people who think for themselves. She is in the process of causing more problems for the people in the district, rather than solving them. She could not get her way, so like a brat, she is still throwing a fit over it. It would be best for the Caldwell School District to let it go, but if they want to push it, then maybe all my anti-mask friends and I will get season tickets to the Caldwell home games and see how that goes.
Anybody who knows anybody knows that his friends are armed mobs.
Yep.
He just threatened the school district with an armed mob.
An angry armed mob.
All right, let's see what happens.
And yeah, he included the detail that the Southwest District Health hasn't mandated masks. That's because he showed up with an armed mob and intimidated them into not passing a mask mandate.
Yeah, because he already bullied them into not doing that. No, not even bullied. He flat out terrified them.
They had to end the meeting. They canceled the next meeting.
And they haven't been able to reconvene.
They did finally reconvene and were all too scared to pass the mandate.
Yep. So We have that going on in Idaho.
Yeah. And this is one where Facebook, according to the United Kingdom, is responsible for 94% of 69 million child sex abuse images that have been reported by U.S. tech firms to the law enforcement agencies.
So they've been keeping an eye on child pornography?
People are reporting stuff, or they're otherwise coming across it, or have algorithms that are looking for it.
Okay, so
I know
one benefit.
I know Facebook has algorithms that look for nudity.
Yeah.
They probably have some tuned to looking for something that looks like child abuse. And 94% of 69 million images.
Wow. Can you believe people are stupid enough to be sharing this stuff on Facebook? What the hell?
Yeah. So the UK, along with 7 other countries, the US is one of them, is using this as evidence that end-to-end encryption is a threat to public safety.
Right. Because if you can't spy on people's messages, you can't weed out the criminals.
Mm-hmm.
Where have we heard that before? This sounds like what? Some kind of sci-fi thing?
1984?
Now, nobody's going to argue that child abuse is bad. Child abuse is terrible. I'm glad that they're acting on some of this stuff. But that doesn't mean that all privacy concerns are invalid.
And realistically, if there are enough messaging services with end-to-end encryption that adding more end-to-end encryption isn't likely to stop the idiots from getting caught.
No, 69 million photos on Facebook. Those guys are just being idiots.
Those are people sharing it in private groups.
Yeah.
That's not stuff over Facebook Messenger, because the only thing Facebook is talking about adding end-to-end encryption to is Facebook Messenger.
Oh, yeah.
Bringing it in line with WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And if they were to do that, then they couldn't see what people are sharing on Facebook Messenger.
Right.
Odds are
99.9% of what they are looking at, they're stealing for ad revenue.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with child pornography. And if you really want to try and end child pornography problems, maybe go for the production.
Yeah. Look at the production. Let's look at...
Unfortunately, images are images, and once they're on the internet, they're on the internet. You can get them anywhere. But that doesn't mean that you can invade the privacy of everybody who uses your service. Just try to weed out those very small amount of people. Very small amount of people.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's one of those, if we...
Or maybe they should, and people need to stop being idiots about what they send stuff through the internet.
End-to-end encryption is never going away.
Right. It will never be universally adopted, and it will never really go away.
Countries need to recognize that and not try to fight it. End-to-end encryption, by and large, is a net benefit because it allows people to have communication that isn't getting spied on by advertising agencies. Facebook and Google are ad companies.
Yeah.
That's all they really are. If they can spy on your data, they can sell better ads. And that's what end-to-end encryption gets around, is advertisers spying. People who really have something to hide, they're concerned about governments finding it, but most people just don't want advertisers looking at it.
Yeah, because it gets really annoying. Like that thing that you told me about earlier today, the Twitter thing where this guy bought a toilet seat, so Amazon keeps showing him different toilet seats to have.
Yep.
You only need one. Why are you... That happens to me. Freaking, you buy a one-time thing, or you email somebody about something, or hell, I swear they listen, and suddenly ads start showing up, and you're like, what? Yeah, it's just bullshit, and we're being used as consumer puppets.
And if we actually want to address issues, we need data-driven analysis of what the actual causes are and what reasonable solutions are to actually solve issues around child abuse. And those need to be tried. And it needs to be driven...
international court. Because that's the biggest problem.
And it needs to be... But it has to be driven by data and evidence and not used to trample everybody else's privacy.
Yeah, but you can't have both. You don't know what's good or bad until you've looked at it.
Right.
It's Schrodinger's moral dilemma on the interwebs. I get it. It's just, there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. It's just all messed up. Just stop sending dick pics.
All right. And for our final story, we have a Pearl River, Louisiana priest getting caught recording a video of himself in a three-way with two dominatrixes.
Okay. Kinky.
On the church altar.
Oh, boy.
Yep. Catholic priest getting caught having sex with two women.
Being sexed by two women. Sounds like. Okay, if you're into that, fine. That's cool. Keep it private. Don't do it at your workplace's throne. Jesus. Oh, sorry. The throne is a separate thing.
It wasn't the throne.
Altar.
This was the altar.
Right. I forget that there's actually a throne in Catholic churches. That's still stupid.
Only in cathedrals.
I know.
Yeah.
I got it.
The archbishop, who does have a throne, he characterized this as demonic and had the altar taken out and burned.
Wow. I mean, a lot of us have, kind of wished for something like that to happen, but not in this case. Unless the guy was trying to have sex on the altar in order to taint it. I can't imagine it being demonic, just stupid.
Well, his taint probably did come into contact with it.
Probably. Oh my God, what an idiot. Why would you record yourself? Just enjoy it in the moment and relive those memories, but don't record yourself in a compromising position. So he's been fired, right?
Oh, yeah. He was immediately defrocked and fired.
I love the idea of defrocking. I imagine the guy being held down by two guards as the archbishop comes up and rips his frock off, and he's left to have to walk naked out the door. That would be hilarious, with people throwing like food bits and mud at him.
He was also arrested.
Maybe people would take it more seriously if that happened.
He was also arrested on obscenity charges.
Yeah.
So were the two women.
Wait, okay.
It was obscene. It's considered obscene behavior.
I'm not. That doesn't settle with me. That was 3 consenting adults doing something
in private.
It
doesn't matter that it wasn't a private place. He
wasn't trespassing.
Private. Nope, that was not trespass.
Obscenity laws. Ugh, don't even.
It would have been one thing if it was in the middle of a church service,
or
I could imagine
sharing the video with kids.
Which he wasn't.
No.
The archbishop's remarks about this priest did include another priest that he was talked about, also referring to obscene and deplorable demonic behavior for fucking a kid.
Oh.
2 separate priests getting defrocked at the same time. One for fucking a kid, one for consenting sex with 2 adults.
No, I have to admit, if that is what gets you off, maybe you're in the wrong line of work.
Yep.
But the punishments there should not be equal. And I hope that when they're arrested and charged, the guy who fucked the kid gets the book thrown at him, and this guy gets to go home and jerk off.
The article refers to Clark, the one with the 3-way, getting arrested. They do not refer to Wattingy getting arrested for the child sex abuse.
That would be easy to look up, but I don't feel like doing that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, a 3-way on the altar with dominatrixes.
Do you know how many fantasies that fulfills for so many people? Oh my God. Every kid who went through Catholic school had to go to Catholic services for his entire growing up life. It would be like, yeah.
There were toys. There was role play.
Aw, this guy really had a good night. That sounds expensive.
Oh, that would have been really expensive.
It was worth it.
Yeah.
I hope the ladies got good money off of it anyway.
Yeah, and jail time. But obscenity charges didn't say prostitution charges.
That's true.
So
maybe they got away.
Yeah. All right, so that's it for news.
Maybe they just slapped them on the wrist. Ooh, harder.
And in feedback, got a message on Reddit asking if I was okay.
Aw.
Apparently, I missed a couple of long pauses in editing last week.
Because as we're doing the podcast, he's sitting there on his laptop looking stuff up.
Yeah.
So there are pauses. He edits those out most of the time.
And I had been a while ago, and apparently these were actually enough to be distracting. It has been my goal to not have those in. I was using some automation to remove those, but I stopped doing that. And this is the first complaint in about 20 weeks. I tried removing that automation to allow for a little bit more natural flow than just having everything cut down, all the silences cut. But I think I'm going to go back to not letting them get that long.
Yeah. All right.
So I'll be adding that automation back in. So this won't happen in the future. I'm sorry. I am okay.
He's tired.
I am tired.
But he's been working out, so, that's good.
But with an almost 3-year-old and a wife with sleep apnea, yeah, I'm tired.
Yeah, we're all exhausted. Here.
Lauren is way more tired than I am.
All the time.
Yeah. So that wraps it up for this week. If you want to support the show, you can find out how at atheistnomads.com/donate. And if you want to contact us, you can use the contact form at the website or the link to SpeakPipe. Until next week, remember, not all those who wander are lost. Thank you for listening to another episode of Atheist Nomads. You can find show notes and contact information at atheistnomads.com. Follow us on Twitter at Atheist Nomads, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Atheist Nomads. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher of choice, and while you're there, feel free to leave us a review. Theme music is courtesy of Sturdy Fred. Until next time, this has been the Atheist Nomads.